And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Kristine Aquino taking you through to that closing bell with the global simulcast. We're joined now by Massar and Tim Stenovec. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, and our partnership with YouTube, here to parse the most crucial moments of the day. A rebound rally here on this Tuesday afternoon and some big earnings up ahead that could maybe aid or hinder further gains.
Yeah, I think about that, right? Workday, Lucid, GoDaddy, Cava, HP Inc. We're going to get those earnings after the closing bell. We'll see what it says, but certainly any of those that play into the AI world that can give either some support or create some new worries. But it does feel like the AI scare, definitely not a part of the trade today, but we'll see what tomorrow brings.
I was just going to say, wait till tomorrow and we'll see what new tool comes from Claude and Anthropic. Hey, I do want to take a look at Bitcoin as we do get toward the end of the month. Yeah? It's heading for the worst month since the crypto collapse of June of 2022. Down about $90 today, or as we speak. 64,471 is where it's hovering.
Yeah, well, tech still very much the story for me today, of course. Looking at that Meta AMD deal, I mean, very interesting that Meta not only buying chips from AMD, also buying shares. If there's any concern about circular funding, it's not showing up today. Both of those shares up and going with the gains that we're seeing in the broad market.
I also want to make sure that everyone keeps their eye on what's been going on in the healthcare space. So one of the weaker sectors, particularly when it comes to insurers, we are expecting that State of the Union speech tonight. Typically more sizzle than substance, but a lot of talk here about the president's push for affordability and how insurers, health insurers, might be right in the crosshairs of that. As we await those earnings, let's walk you through the numbers here on this Tuesday afternoon. The S&P looks like it's going to close higher by roughly about 50 points, or about 0.8%, clawing back most, but not all, of the losses from yesterday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up a similar percent, about 0.8% on the day. The NASDAQ composite adding about 1%, and the Russell 2000, Carol, up 31 points, or 1.2%.
All right, good stuff. Let me go back to the S&P 500, Romaine. Taking a look inside this index, most names in the S&P 500 higher today. In fact, 356 gaining ground on this Tuesday. Romaine, 145 to the downside and 2 unchanged.
Yeah, consumer discretionary stocks, that is your outperformer here on the day, with 9 of the 11 S&P sectors in the green. Industrials and tech also getting in on a lot of action, but to the downside, it was energy and healthcare.
All right, guys, let me go to some of the individual gainers. AMD, number 2 gainer in the S&P 500. Also, the number 2 gainer in the NASDAQ 100. This one rallying almost 9% in today's session. You know the news. Meta Platforms will be spending billions of dollars on AMD gear and has plans to buy AMD stock. Meta is going to deploy data center gear based on processors from AMD in a deal worth double-digit billions of dollars per gigawatt. Get into the story. It's on the Bloomberg, all the details, but definitely moving that name. And I know we got some earnings.
Yeah, we actually got Workday, of course, the application software company, out with the results here. Remember, this is a stock that has actually been decimated, down 39% just to start the year. And it looks like in the after-hours trade, it's moving even lower. The company says that adjusted EPS in the most recent quarter did come in above estimates, $2.47. The street was looking for $2.32. Revenue did grow at about a 15% clip to $2.53 billion. That's relatively in line with estimates. Subscription revenue on the nose as well at $2.36 billion. The company, though, saying that for the current quarter, the fiscal first quarter, it sees $2.34 billion in subscription revenue. And for the full year, okay, this is the real guidance here. Yeah. For the full year, subscription revenue of $9.9 to $9.95 billion. The top end of that range is below the average of street estimates. The street was looking for $10 billion on average, Tim. And on an adjusted operating margin, the company says expect about 30% for the full year. The street was looking for about 31%.
So it's one of those companies, as you mentioned, that people have been concerned that could be displaced or at least disrupted by AI. Shares down about 8% in the after hours. The company now calling itself the enterprise AI platform for managing people, money, and agents. The statement in the press release coming from the company's co-founder, CEO, and chair says, quote, "We built Workday to bring innovation back to the worlds of HR and finance, and AI gives us the chance to do it all again. We operate at the heart of global enterprise. It gives Workday a unique opportunity to bring AI directly into the HR and finance workflows our customers rely on every day, and to deliver real, measurable value." From a communications perspective, we hear from these software companies over and over again, we're not scared of AI, we're embracing AI. That's the message that they want investors to get. It's just not clear if investors are buying it.
Well, investors have been sending a pretty clear message. I mean, the stock's down about 40% year to date and taking another 9% to the downside in the aftermarket. So that message pretty clear, but we'll see what else we get maybe on the call with analysts and investors to see if there's more clarity around that AI component. All right, I'm going to go, as we wait for some more earnings, go back to a few other gainers in today's session. Ticker KEYS, Keys, Keysight Technologies, number one gainer in the S&P 500. It's a measurement instruments company, and this stock surging 23% in today's session after it forecast fiscal second quarter earnings, which beat the average analyst estimate. It also reported stronger than expected first quarter results. Speaking of AI, booming AI workloads, along with faster growth in other business areas, including wireless and defense, are all boosting growth, according to analysts for this company. And one more, this was your number one gainer in the NASDAQ 100, Thomson Reuters, ticker TRI, stock up about 11.5%, shares soaring on heavy volume in today's session, biggest intraday gain too in about 17 years. Company said it reached 1 million professional users of CoCounsel, its legal and business artificial intelligence tool, and announced that it was working with Anthropic's Claude model. Stock still down, though, about 31% year to date. But AI just in everything, and it definitely gets stocks moving, sometimes to the downside, sometimes to the upside.
Well, let's look at some stocks that did move to the downside today. It wasn't the worst performer in the S&P 500, but among them, Texas Instruments down close to 3% on the day today. This after the company indicated that spending on new plants and equipment will remain higher than some investors had anticipated. The company gave a presentation on Tuesday and said that expenditures will be $2 billion to $3 billion this year. That was the previous stance. Over the last 4 years, it's increased spending far above historical levels, citing the need to bring manufacturing back in-house and reverse an outsourcing trend. Also, taking a look at shares of Whirlpool Corp on the day today. This after it said it launched a concurrent separate underwritten public offerings of common shares and depository shares. Shares fell by close to 14%. The depository shares each represent a 1/20th interest in a share of a newly issued Series A mandatory convertible preferred stock, and the proceeds aggregate from the offerings are anticipated to be $800 million. And finally, Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly both falling today. This after Novo said it plans to slash the U.S. list prices for its blockbusters Wegovy and Ozempic next year by as much as 50%. Novo Nordisk ADR is down 2.6%. Eli Lilly down 1.6%.
All right, not much movement in yields today, down up about 2 basis points on the shorter end of the curve, up about 2 basis points on the longer end of the curve. We are continuing to get some earnings. This on electric vehicle maker Lucid, the company reporting an adjusted loss in the most recent quarter of about $3.08 a share. That's wider than what the street was looking for. Revenue at 522, we'll round it up to 523 million. That's actually a beat. The street was looking for roughly about 459. Production of vehicles right now for 2026, company says look for about 25,000 to 27,000 vehicles. The shares down, though, about 6 to 7% in the after-hours trade.
All right, let's go to some more earnings. Tanger out with its results, and we're looking at fourth quarter total revenue, 160.3 million. Folks, that's a beat. Street was looking for 146.2 million. Right now, the stock unchanged as these headlines just start to cross the Bloomberg terminal. And also I'm looking for a little bit more clarity in terms of some of their results. Again, the stock unchanged here, but it looks like they are beating estimates in some metrics. And just taking a look real quick, again, not really much of a trade here. Stock is up about 6.5% so far year to date. This is a retail REIT. Of course, you know, their outlets and so on and so forth that are around. So good read on the consumer, but also on the REIT market. But right now, again, not much moving on that stock here, unchanged in the aftermarket.
Let's just go to GoDaddy right now, up about 0.8% in the after hours. The outlook, the company sees first quarter revenue 1.25 to 1.27 billion. That's just shy of estimates of $1.28 billion. Shares down about 1% in the after hours. Looking backward, fourth quarter revenue came in line with estimates at $1.27 billion. Fourth quarter EPS did come in above estimates at $1.80.
All right, just going quick back to Workday, if I may, because we're seeing that stock definitely moving a bunch in the aftermarket. You still got it down about 6.7%. We went through some of the metrics, but again, the outlook sees 2027 subscription revenue, 9.93 billion to 9.95 billion. Street estimate was at 10 billion. and also looking at 2027 adjusted operating margin of 30%. That's below the street estimate of 31.1. So the stock, as we know, has been beaten up in this year already, down 40%, but we're looking at some more selling in the aftermarket.